As trade talks continue to ramp up for Toronto Maple Leafs star Mitch Marner, a notable insider has come out and linked the Leafs to the Ottawa Senators as a potential trade partner, and who they might get back for Mitch Marner might surprise you. So we're going to break down that report and discuss what a trade could look like on this episode. Before we do, if you're a part of the percentage of viewers who are not subscribed, about 81%, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We make daily Leafs videos for you all, and you're not going to want to miss it all off season long as more and more trade reports, news, tons of different things come out for the Leafs. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 11,000. Now, Darius, a lot to go over today. This one's an interesting one. The Marner trade talks are, I'm not saying they're picking up right now, but an insider has linked the Leafs to a very, very interesting trade. And this one might have some fans. I don't know if we're going to like it. I have my personal opinion on it. I'm sure you do too. And let's just dive right in. And you can see here from the Leafs' latest, Nick Kypreos and Justin Bourne have brought up the idea of a possible Brady Tkachuk to the Leafs trade. They note how Tkachuk might be frustrated with Ottawa's lack of progress and could demand a trade if dissatisfied, forcing Ottawa to consider it. If Tkachuk is traded, Toronto might need to offer high-value assets like Marner, draft picks, or prospects. Now, yeah, they're linked. So the Leafs are currently in an interesting spot with Mitch Marner. Obviously, the offseason is still young. There's still lots of time for them to trade and shop around Marner, but a Brady Tkachuk package for Mitch Marner would be interesting to say the least. There's some more screenshots to get into in a second, but what are your thoughts on this this rumor from Nick Kypreos, who is a notable insider, and it's interesting?
Yeah, but I think it was more of just him, thinking out loud. This might work, and I think it would be like a cool idea, and it's a fun little exercise for us to look at. But obviously, Mitch Marner would have to go the other way if this were to happen, just based off salary, right? And we'll get into stats and salary and all that in a sec, but just to make it work, it would have to be Mitch Marner and probably a little bit more. Like, this wouldn't be a straight up 1-for-1 trade. There would be way more pieces, and obviously, like I said, like high value asset pieces, added to the trade. So pretty interesting. I don't know. It would be fun for the Leafs because you'd save a lot of salary. But I just don't know if you're getting who you think you're getting. Like, you're not getting Matthew Tkachuk, you're getting Brady Tkachuk. And yes, he's a good player, but there is a difference there. So I know the Leafs want a Tkachuk. I'm just not sure if we're looking at the right one.
Yeah, and obviously Matthew is not going to be getting traded anytime soon, as the Florida Panthers are probably on the way to the Cup. But we look at this now. Yeah, I don't know if I would like this. I mean, you're giving up plus assets here, and you can see here the screenshot's a little bit small, but if you want to pause and read it, that's kind of the exact quote. And it basically depends on several factors, whether that's the Leafs' willingness to trade Marner, the Senators' willingness to trade their captain. But if Tkachuk has a desire to move, then it could be a very interesting one. Now, when you look at the flip side, and this is kind of what you're mentioning, Darius, a lot of fans saw this, obviously, because it blew up when you hear a Tkachuk to the Toronto Maple Leafs rumor or anything like that. You can see here, Brady Tkachuk is everything the Leafs are accused of being. He has a county club mentality, pouted when his favorite coach was fired, had a locker room rift with Claude Giroux of all people. He isn't the player behind the scenes that people think he is, and really, we don't know. Like, we're not behind the scenes, so this guy doesn't necessarily know either, but there is some red flags per se, that could lend credence to the fact that, is Brady Tkachuk a guy you want to bring into the core that the Leafs have right now with Craig Berube to augment them? You could also make the argument that Craig Berube would be a good coach for Brady Tkachuk to keep everybody in check with his veteran presence and things like that as well.
Yeah, and you have to also think that for the Leafs, this is an in-division trade, which we talked about with like the Bruins, for example. Very unlikely to happen, I think. And if you're Mitch Marner, do you want to waive your trade clause to go to a bad team? Because honestly, that's what they are. I know Sens fans and other people think they're starting to climb the standings, but we haven't seen it yet. They're a bad team, and he's still not that far from home. It's in Ottawa, right? So I wonder if he even waives to go there. But it's interesting. Like, yes, the salary would work, and you can make it a huge trade, but the dynamics of everything and Brady Tkachuk, everything that comes with that. Yes, great player, but we don't know exactly. There's stories, right? And sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. So there's stories about that. I'm not going to get into that again, speculation, and this, this tweet kind of gets into it too. But I like seeing things from both sides. So yes, like on the ice, great player. But when you look at things like this too, you have to factor it into the fact that, the Leafs mentality, the personnel on the team, the mentality hasn't been there. That's one of the biggest reasons they haven't been able to get over the hump. So you have to be careful who you add as well.
And let's get into some of the stats now, because if you're most people are familiar with Mitch Marner here. 85 points in 69 games played, and a very obviously good player. It just looks like maybe his time in Toronto is coming to an end, although we don't know that for 100% sure at this point. When you're looking at Brady Tkachuk, he's also a very good player. He had 74 points last year with 37 goals. Yes, not quite as good as Matthew Tkachuk, but he would be if everything was equal, an adequate replacement for Mitch Marner if they want to change things up. And it does make sense from a on-ice perspective to a degree. I mean, you're trading a guy who hasn't been able to perform in the playoffs in Mitch Marner, and then maybe Brady Tkachuk will be able to perform in the playoffs. Obviously, the Senators haven't really been to the playoffs because, like you said, they're not the best team. But you're looking at the cap hit and his contract. He signed through 2027, 2028 with an AAV of $8.205 million. Now, this is kind of the big thing. You're also getting a lot more control. Obviously, you know Mitch Marner is on his way out after this year. His contract expires, whereas Brady Tkachuk, you're looking at having him for a while.
Yeah, if you were to make this trade, you have Brady Tkachuk for multiple years, right? Mitch Marner, like you said, like something's going to come to a head, whether he resigns or that he's traded this season. So obviously you get control over the contract. If you were to make that trade, you're saving about $3 million on the cap, which is huge. You can use that elsewhere. Obviously, we talked about the Leafs need a goaltender. They need to upgrade in defense as well. And he hasn't even played in the playoffs yet, Brady Tkachuk, that is, right? So he strikes me as a guy like his brother. Like, I'm not saying he's as good, but he strikes me as a guy who would play his best hockey in the playoffs. And he's really well-rounded, like 37 goals, 37 assists. Like he's going to get equal output for you, right? So he's a pretty dynamic player in that way. So I think, obviously he would look great on the Leafs, right? In which Mitch Marner coming out for the Ottawa Senators, he would help them as well. They have a couple of goal scorers who he could help set up, and I think he would score more goals there as well.
Yeah.
But, it would certainly be interesting. I'm just not sure it's a good fit for either team, just because they're in division and you don't want to trade in division and then Mitch Marner brings them to the playoffs or something like that, right? We've been seeing a lot of that wherever Marner goes, he's going to win a cup or something. So I don't know, it's a fun little exercise.
Definitely fun. And again, if we go back to the first screenshot, you mentioned it, Darius, I'll ask you, what would you be willing to give up for Brady Tkachuk if it's a Mitch Marner trade? Would you be willing to give up Marner and a pick? Would you be, obviously it won't probably be a straight swap, especially because Brady Tkachuk is under control for longer, a lot longer than Mitch Marner. What kind of trade would you consider for Brady Tkachuk if this hypothetically were to go through? What kind of trade could you foresee happening if it was to go through based on this report here?
Ottawa has a couple defensemen, so maybe you look at a couple defensemen, not like getting all of them, but maybe you look at a few of them and say, okay, we want this guy, we want Brady Tkachuk, and then obviously Mitch Marner has to go the other way to make the salary work. You're looking at a draft pick going the other way, of course, because Ottawa's giving up a lot of control there. Mitch Marner could leave next year for all they know, right? So, or maybe it's a sign-and trade. Who knows? Maybe there's more to this. But anyway, it's a hypothetical. But you look at a defenseman, you look at Brady Tkachuk, and then I think you're pretty happy. But I'm not sure it works for Ottawa in that way.
Yeah, if you're an Ottawa fan, let us know, would you trade Brady Tkachuk? And if you're a Leafs fan, let us know, would you do this very interesting proposed scenario from Nick Kypreos and Insider? Maybe in the future, once they trade or once trade talks start to really ramp up, this might be something that's considered. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this, and we will see you soon.